Alright, so Black Ops 6 has been out for a little over 2 months now, and I've gotta say, I'm having a lot of fun with it. Is it perfect? No. Honestly, I don't think anything is ever going to surpass my beloved Black Ops 1, but it's still pretty good. So today, I wanted to go ahead and share 5 things about Black Ops 6 Zombies that I like, and 5 things about the game that I don't like so much. And because I want this video to end on a positive note, we're gonna start with something that I dislike, which is going to be the lack of intro cinematics. Yes, these maps do have intro cinematics, and they are pretty good, especially the one from Liberty Falls, but they only ever play the first time that you launch one of these maps, which I think is stupid. These cutscenes provide crucial information for the story and are an important part of their maps, so you should be able to watch them every time you play one of these maps, even if they are just going to get skipped 99% of the time. Currently, there's not even a cinematic library in-game where we can rewatch them like there was in Cold War. The only option is to look them up on YouTube. But I don't think you should have to go to some external source to be able to watch part of the game. I mean, it's in the files, isn't it? Let me watch it. Additionally, on a somewhat similar note, I don't really like that there's no fade from black or anything when the match starts. It just sort of cuts from the loading screen to the map. Yes, this is sort of nitpicky, but things like this really help to set the tone, and without it, the start of the match feels sort of anticlimactic.
Remember how to do this, Ravenov?
On the other hand, something that I really like about this game so far is the intel system. This, of course, originated from Cold War, and it gave us the ability to look at all of the documents, artifacts, and audio logs that we had found right from the menu. It was a great quality of life feature, especially for story nerds like me, but the problem with it in Cold War was that there were 266 pieces of intel to collect. In Outbreak alone. 578 in total across all of the different maps and modes. And there was a lot of RNG with them too. Sure, some of them could be found in designated spots on the maps, but sometimes you'd just be playing normally and a mimic would drop a shirtless picture of Peck or something, which you would pick up and probably never look at again because you wouldn't know what category it's under or what season it's even from. But they have greatly improved this system for Black Ops 6. Right now, there's only about 20 to 30 intel per map, some of which aren't even story related, which is far more digestible than, say, 80. And there's no RNG with them either. You could either find them in specific spots on the map, through the main quest, or by completing some kind of task. And it's also nice that the intel in this game is not being used to fill the gaps between the maps, which is kind of what they did in Cold War. So far, the main quests have given us all of the essential information that we need to understand the story, and the intel is being used more to enhance it and to provide context. This next one I've brought up before, and I'm going to bring it up again because I can't think of much else, but I wish that there was some kind of random character option. For me, part of the fun of the older games was not knowing which characters you and your buddies were going to get, and then you would become attached to those characters over the match, and then maybe you'd decide to play another match afterwards and you'd all get different characters, and it feels a bit weird because you were used to your friend being Takio but now they're Dempsey, and maybe you were Dempsey in the last game, so it kind of feels like you've been robbed of your identity. Did that happen to anybody else, or was that just me? Anyway, I just like to play as a different character for each match, and I'd prefer not to have to manually change it every time. But I would also want the game to prioritize giving me the story characters on maps like Terminus and Citadel de Mor, which is why I think they need to implement the no preference option from World War II Zombies, since this is basically the same system from that game anyway. What that did is it would automatically select one of the 4 main characters that was not already taken. I also think that it would be nice if they made it easier to see who is playing as which character in the lobby, because right now you can't see much of anything. Remember when we first saw the gameplay of Liberty Falls and everybody said that it looked way too easy? Well, thankfully they addressed that. Is it as hard as the older games? No, not at all. But I think it's in a good place, especially for a fun, casual match. But they did something interesting. Something that doesn't necessarily make the game more difficult, but it makes it feel more difficult. That being the red screen when you take too much damage. Yes, this has always been a thing in Call of Duty, and just video games in general, being used to indicate when you are very close to death. But here in Black Ops 6, it kicks in when you get to half health, which really isn't all that low, especially during the earlier rounds. But when the blood shows up on your screen and you hear that heartbeat, your Pavlovian conditioning is going to make you think that your health is a lot lower, and so you're going to react as if your health is that low. Usually this will lead to some exhilarating moments where you feel like you just narrowly escaped death even though you weren't really in danger to begin with, or sometimes you'll panic too much and you actually die. I have experienced both. This one is pretty universal, but I hate the idea of voice actors being replaced. I mean, it's one thing for it to happen in between games, that's nothing new. Honestly, I didn't even notice that characters like Peck and Gray were recast, but I'm worried that I'm going to log in one day and find that my favorite characters suddenly sound different. This is a first-person shooter, so these characters can't really be expressed through body language, and we hardly ever see their faces, so the main way that they are portrayed is through their voices, and I don't think that that should be subject to change. Especially for somebody like Julie Nathanson, who had been a part of this series for about as long as I've been playing it, and whose character was more interesting than she had ever been before. This really was the worst time to lose her. Her and the new guy for the monkey bomb. He just doesn't sound the same at all. You know, early on, I thought that starting with level 1 armor was such a bad idea. We should be more vulnerable at the start of the game, not less. And well, I still stand by that, but I also have come to realize that spawning in with level 1 armor was actually a genius decision. See, there's something called the too awesome to use syndrome, which is when people hoard up limited resources in games and then never use them out of fear of wasting them. I am certainly guilty of this, and I'm sure that a lot of you watching are as well. Now, armor in Black Ops 6 is not some super rare resource or anything, but I often find myself trying to avoid getting hit early on because I don't want to waste it. I don't need to do this. I know that the zombies are not strong enough to kill me even without the armor, but it just feels wrong to let it get used up. And if I didn't have it, then I wouldn't really care about getting hit in the early rounds because that health would just regenerate. So ironically, by making us stronger at the beginning of the game, they have also given us more to lose. They maintain that more forgiving difficulty that they've been pushing since Black Ops 4, while also giving players an incentive to protect themselves. I really do not like the Pack-a-Punch camos in this game. Not the one from Terminus, that one is actually fantastic, but the ones from Liberty Falls and Citadel de Mor are just everything I hate in a Pack-a-Punch camo. Too bright, obnoxious colors, and overly animated. They don't even fit with their map's themes. I really hope that they can get it together for the upcoming maps, but honestly, I think I just prefer that they use the Terminus one as the default upgrade camo. It would fit just fine on any map, and do we really need a new one every single time anyway? There's literally a setting to turn them off. Actually, I think that this is just further proof of Activision's plot to make people buy more blueprints by giving us terrible Pack-a-Punch camos. Also, is it just me, or are the mastery camos for zombies just not that great either? Honestly, I think the ones from multiplayer look a lot better. Mystic Gold is okay, I guess. I don't really care much for Opal or Nebula, and Afterlife has nothing on the original. Now, Dark Ether from Cold War, that was a good camo. I never unlocked it, but boy do I wish I had. One of my biggest criticisms about Cold War was just how overpowered the melee weapons were, especially once you had fully upgraded that skill tree. They were a one-shot until at least round 10, you didn't need to worry about ammo, there was very little risk with using them, and you still got the maximum amount of points per kill. So when they announced the dedicated melee weapon in Black Ops 6, I was a little worried that they were going to be just as overpowered. But they actually addressed all of these issues. The standard knife is only a one hit until round 3 and needs to be upgraded after that. The zombies in this game are more numerous and more aggressive, so using your melee could be risky, and the value of a melee kill has been reduced from 115 points to 105. A small difference, but it does add up. Maybe this was all overkill because I rarely ever use the knife in this game, but it does encourage players to go for headshots more than to rely on their knife, which I would definitely prefer over having the melee weapons be stronger than the guns. I'm really happy that we have a dedicated crew again, but I can't help but notice that they're kind of lacking in the amount of dialogue that they have. This is something that I am okay with for the operators, since I do not expect them to be as fleshed out as the main 4, but there are voice lines that I would expect them to have that are just missing. For example, none of them have quotes for when you're out of ammo. It's kind of minor, but it is nice when your character will react to things like this. It makes them feel more alive. Plus, historically, the out of ammo quotes have been some of the best in the series.
Hey, player! Drop the chips and get me some ammo!
Additionally, I think that there's still too much reliance on characters over the radio. Again, this is fine for when you're playing as an operator. I don't expect them to have enough dialogue for these maps, and sometimes it is utilized well, like when Kraft explains the history of the castle during Citadel de Mor, because he is the only one that would reasonably know that. But like the first time you see a vermin evolve into a parasite on Terminus, that would have been a good opportunity for your character to comment on it, but instead you get a line from Peck or Strauss, who aren't even witnessing it firsthand. At least the radio characters in this game have so far actually been present on the maps and are more directly involved in what's going on, even if you can't always see them, which sure beats having them off in some safe house far removed from any danger. I do also want to mention that there are some new types of quotes that weren't in the older games, like reacting to the different ammo mods or commenting on the box whenever you open it, and there is special dialogue for reaching certain round milestones, something that isn't new, but it was pretty rare before. Overall, the character dialogue in Black Ops 6 is better than what we had in Cold War, and it does have some nice qualities, but it's not on the same level as the games from 15 years ago. I like how the weapons feel in this game. From the initial loadout rarity to a legendary level 3 packed gun, it all feels very well balanced for the rounds that you are intended to have them. They're effective at first and noticeably stronger than the previous tiers, but you'll still be able to feel the zombies getting progressively stronger, pushing you to go for the next upgrade. And there are multiple ways to go about doing this with a healthy amount of opportunities to skip ahead in the progression. But you can only improve your guns so much, and once they're maxed out, they'll only last until about the 30s before they start to become ineffective. I've seen people complain about this, saying that the guns need to be buffed so that we can survive longer, but I completely disagree. Guns cannot last forever. Eventually, there has to come a point where the zombies will be too strong to kill through normal means. And if it takes too long to reach that point, especially after you're all set up, then the game will start to get boring. So I think getting to the 30s is a good length for an average match of Black Ops 6 zombies. It's long enough to get a complete experience, but not so long that it starts to drag on. And if you want to go farther than that, you absolutely can, you just need to rely more on other methods of killing the zombies. Some of which may be a bit too powerful based on what I've seen, but that's another discussion. But of course, weapon damage is not the only thing that contributes to the difficulty in this game. It's also because of the increased horde size, the aggressive zombie behavior, the special enemies, the limited self-revives, and the lack of get-out-of-jail-free cards that existed in the previous games. Now, I have something to confess. I have not been entirely honest. This video is not just 5 things that I like about Black Ops 6, it's actually going to be a bit more. So to finish things off, we're going to go ahead and do a lightning round. I like the SAM trials. They're a lot more fun and engaging than any other challenge system we've had in zombies. I like that when you shoot off a zombie's head, they'll stumble around aimlessly for a few seconds before they die. I like how threatening the vermin can be. A lot of special zombies in the past have been pushovers, but these guys can mess you up real quick. Plus, a parasitic species that lives inside the zombies and attacks you after they die is such a cool idea. I like that the grenades make a lot of crawlers, but they're still really strong. I like the ragdoll effects. I will never get tired of seeing the zombies get thrown around. I like that there are better reasons for the exfil chopper only being available for short periods of time, whether it be mechanical issues, bad weather, or egg salad sandwiches. And finally, Kevin Sherwood is back writing music. Zombies maps just don't quite feel the same without a song, and I really like the 3 that we've gotten so far. Slave from Citadel de Mor is easily one of my all-time favorites. Now we just need to get those cinematic music video trailers back and we'll be all set. Gosh, we haven't gotten one of those since, what, Dead of the Night? You know what, if they gave us theater mode for zombies, I'd make them myself.